to unmute myself. Hi everybody, Matt Geary for the Geek Pride cast on this Sunday evening. With me, we do not have the visual feast that we usually do each week, and it's just my ugly mug with three of my Geek Pride compatriots audioing in only. So with me tonight, we have Laura Benson.
Hello.
Mark Canty.
Hola.
And King of the Geeks, Josh Varney.
Oh, you.
Yeah, I thought about videoing him tonight. I was going to bring in my Danny DeVito cutout and just keep on moving him during the feed. But I just couldn't be bothered to put on makeup.
Okay.
Simple as that.
Third world problems there.
Yeah, basically. Just too goddamn lazy.
Too goddamn lazy. Yeah.
Yep.
You know, I wake up early to do my makeup, so...
You need to.
Yeah. As you
all
do.
All that hair is a lot. It's a lot to maintain when you've got facial hair.
Well, man, my beard's just crap. I'm very disappointed. I don't do a bad mustache or a goatee, but other than that, throwing my mic everywhere. Other than that, I sort of like I don't get much sort of hair. I get maybe a bit of a line, but I could never get a pirate beard. As much as I always wanted a pirate beard.
My Smith stash takes at least half an hour to properly maintain in the morning.
I honestly don't know how men do like facial hair. Like it just seems like so. Like I know I put on makeup, but like I can choose not to do that. Whereas that fuzzy thing is still there. Like,
yeah.
Doesn't it itch? Isn't it annoying? Don't you get like I've seen people drop food and get food stuck in them, and that's gross.
I've got a couple of friends who have mighty beards, and it's just good to have. It's just good to have something you can sort of stroke. I just couldn't think of how it would be to sort of think about something without stroking my chin and going, yes, because it definitely helps.
Do you secretly want to be the master from Kill Bill and have that beard that goes down 2 foot and you have to stroke the whole thing and flick it over your shoulder?
Yeah.
I'd rather be Splinter.
Oh yes.
Splinter, whoosh. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. But with the beard, you're saying about food getting stuck. At least you got a snack later on.
Ah, gross.
And the stuff you've got to use to actually keep the beard in tip-top shape. It's really expensive because you've got to get like balms and conditioners and.
Yes, I as a woman knows nothing about expensive skincare. Like, don't even fucking come at me, bro.
The cross we bear.
The cross we bear, indeed.
So,
yeah.
What
Swiftly moving on from facial care. So, what has everybody been up to in the world of Geek this week? What you've been doing?
Well, I smashed through Warrior Nun in 2 days and Old Guard last night.
What's Old Guard like? Because people have been telling me it's quite good. So, firstly, give me the quick synopsis without ruining it, and then I thought.
There's a small sector of immortals that have existed for a very long time, and new ones just come into this world, and the existing sect has to go kind of rescue her from being experimented on.
Okay.
The main immortal is Charlize Theron, and God, that woman, when she punches things, I question my sexuality. She was so good in Atomic Blonde. Like, all of her action scenes were just brutally fantastic. Okay. And she brought that same energy to this movie. Like, it's really great to see that the fighting style, the choreography of it, like, she's a slim woman, It's like she would never win an arm wrestle against a guy. So the style they've given her of fighting is just brutally efficient. So you could actually see very reasonably why she would kick ass. And she uses all kinds of weapons, battle axes, samurai swords, guns.
Oh, I want that axe. I actually want that axe. That's such a cool axe.
And she does, in the movie, they do something that often is a pet peeve of mine. They actually constantly pick up guns from people they've killed. So they haven't got, like, the infinity gun of bullets. That's just a real pet peeve of mine. So it's just nice, that little detail that they empty a gun, they clear it off the next boy. They empty it and clear it off the next boy. It's a little thing, but it's that I like. And
but I like that in
representation in the cast.
in
Yeah.
films where you get sort of little things, which is like, you know, I've mentioned it before in the podcast, but I love it in Inglourious Bastards where they pick up the accent and how the
Yeah.
accent isn't right, and it's just like, because you think in all war movies they always, you know, this guy can speak German so he can just walk around German normally and nobody's gonna, you know, believe that
Yeah.
he isn't German. But it's just like, well, not really, because if you speak a different language you're gonna have an accent and it's gonna be a bit odd, and they did that in Inglourious Bastards, and I loved that. That's just that one moment where he's just like, I don't know where the accent's from, and he picks up on it. And I was like, that's awesome. I love that.
I think it's a really good way of tethering fantasy shows into reality, like making them more believable when you pick up on the little things that
Yeah.
we acknowledge as fact, like bullets run at, like a handgun probably has 6 to 8 bullets. A machine gun has a lot more bullets, but you fire much faster, so you haven't got like 20 minutes of firing time. So like we know these things, and so when we see them being acknowledged, it makes it, I think, easier to stomach the fact that she
Yeah.
just took a headshot and got
Yeah.
back up again.
Because the little details are there to
Yeah,
hold on
and-
to. It's suspension of disbelief, isn't it? You give them the little truths to sell the big lie.
yeah, it's like my parents are big into Strike Back, which, oh my God, do I hate. Jesus Christ. Anyway, I walked in on them watching it the other day, and I watched this one guy just go through this 30-minute scene where he's chasing down a terrorist, and he's killing other terrorists, and he's got like this one handgun, and this fucking thing never runs out. Like half an hour, and he shot like 100 dudes with this goddamn thing, and it never runs out. And this is meant to be a show based in reality, and I found it less believable than the story about the people who take bullets to heads.
Yep.
Like, it's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really good. Charlize Theron is I'm such a fan of her acting when she's just like when she did that snowman hunt queen thing, that awful movie where she was the
Snow White and the Huntsman.
yeah, there was this behind the scenes thing where they asked her how she looks so regal and like how does she do the queen's walk, and she was like shoulders back, head up, clench fists, and walk forward and just channel murder. And you can really see that. And I just really enjoy her acting, and it's just so fun to see her in Atomic Blonde and this just really kick a lot of ass. But there's also just some like great like moments of macabre humor. Like the new immortal doesn't believe that she's immortal and starts running away, so Charlize just shoots her in the head.
Yep.
She just goes, oh fuck, and just shoots her in the head. And the woman's like, "Did you shot me?" And she's like, "Yeah, get in the car." Like
Yeah.
the blasé-ness that comes with
Been there,
knowing
done
that
that,
you'll
got the
always get up.
t-shirt.
And it's great because they only hint at how old she is. They don't give us any definite answers. So if they make it to a sequel, which the cast is apparently on board for, it'll, depending on the Netflix viewing figures, I really hope they kind of delve into her past, because they've implied that she's, I would say, at least 2,000 years old.
Probably 2.5.
To my
3,
estimation.
2.5.
Yeah.
2.5. I know
So-
Greg Rucka, who did the screenplay, and it's based on his work. He
Yeah.
was on Fat Man Beyond live last night with Kevin Smith and Mark Bernard, and he was going through everything that's kind of like led to the old guard, and he kept it really quiet. But yeah, he was saying that obviously once the numbers come through with Netflix now, they always sit down and carry on, because there's a lot of source material, I think we can say, to go on from the old guard in whether or not they're getting a sequel film or going on from a TV series. Because if you guys read any of Greg Rucka's work, Gotham Central at all?
No.
His writing is fantastic, so fantastic. He was mentioning last night about Gotham PD might be getting picked up after the Batman movie, and he was saying, I know, and he was saying about there's so much storyline you can take from his work and put it into the TV series. Like there's sequence where Poison Ivy's taken over the park, and all like lost children know that if you need protecting and you need something, you go to the park, because Poison Ivy looks after the kids, because kids aren't, Poison Ivy hates people. Kids aren't really people yet.
Yeah.
So if somebody messes with her kids, she just kills anybody that walks into the park.
I did see a comic where they kind of touched on that with her and Harley Quinn, Basically, like, they were in the middle of committing a crime or something. Little girl runs up to them and asks for help, and they're like, we're not heroes. But then they see this guy be like, oh yeah, that's my daughter, and they were like, yeah, fuck that. And they're like, we think Batgirl will be okay with this. We're just gonna kill that guy. And I was like, yeah, you do you. Queen,
Yeah.
let's stand with Queen.
You do you.
I'd watch that.
Yeah. But yeah, no. With Old Guard, it'll be interesting to see if they get that sequel, because I did see another review say the movie felt a little bit more like a 2-hour-long TV pilot than it did really a movie, and I can agree with that a bit. There are some weak parts in the script. They probably didn't focus on some things enough and focused on other things too much. Like, the action scenes are brilliant, but it kind of, you don't really care about what happens to the characters because we don't know enough about them.
And because they're just going to get up.
Yeah, exactly. But what
That's
is
the
really
hard
nice is it's got great representation. Like, two of the Immortals met on the battlefields of the Crusades. They both came to their immortality at the same time and were killing each other over and over again. And then after they killed each other for like the 5th time, we're like, I think we're soulmates. And so it's like this this Middle Eastern guy and whoever he was fighting on the other side. So you've got representation that you don't often see in that medium. And they're really great about it. Like, they're really loving and wonderful, and they've got a really healthy relationship. And when others in the movie try and mock them for it, they're like, dude, you're trying to be like, oh, he's your boyfriend. I'm like 500 years old. Like, what? Step up.
So is there, without obviously ruining it, is there sort of a way of killing them, or is there sort of like, there's
some dangling threads. Might cover some things.
They sometimes, they don't know why, just stop healing. So they cover this probably in the first 10 minutes, that some of the Immortals in the past that she's come across, the main character, have just one day just stopped healing. And they don't know why or what comes into it. I have a mild theory. Like, I haven't read the comic books, that maybe there's only so many of them allowed in the world at any one point.
There can only be 5.
Yeah, something like that. But I mean, that's based off what I kind of saw in the show. And they have shown that, like, they can be, like, horrific things done to them. Like, there's a character who's been dropped in an iron coffin in the ocean to die and come back to life, die and come back to life until she's driven insane. And they can, until they find each other, they dream of each other. So they're all dreaming of this woman slowly going insane under like 500 years in the ocean. So that's kind of like one of those interesting things I've always found about immortal stories, because they actually covered this in like Queen of the Damned, Lestat and Rice books and everything, where they've punished vampires in the past by just locking them in a tomb and chucking them in the ocean or something, being like, well, you're going to survive. Angel did this. That was actually a season plot in Angel. They're like, if you're going to keep living, we can make your life a fucking misery. And I think it's a really interesting plot point.
Oh, okay.
The funny thing is, I saw this when I was watching it. Harry Melling is in this film.
Do you not know him?
Dudley Dursley.
Oh, wait, yeah. Oh, my God, he was such a prick in this film. Like, I know that's the role he was playing, but Jesus Christ, like, there's a part where he gets, like, punched, and you're just like, oh, that
you
felt so good.
You went totally Valley Girl right there. You're like, Jesus Christ. I'm Valley Girl.
I used to do, when I was younger, I used to do a really bad impersonation of, like, an American cheerleader just to annoy people. And at my early anime conventions, if I wanted to embarrass a friend, I would go full on, like, otaku, high-pitched screeching fangirl and just be like, kawaii desu ne, and like throw myself and yell it as loud as I could across the convention hall, and the person who was like the victim would just be like, I want to kill myself. And I was like, don't be like that, senpai. And they're like, stop, please, I'm begging you, stop. And I'm like, kawaii.
So we're going back to those fucking accents now, like what you were saying, Geary, about Inglourious Bastards. Everybody's like coming on with their accents, and all of a sudden Brad Pitt goes, hold my beer, and goes, buongiorno.
Yeah.
It's like what was it that someone asked me to say? I get asked to say things in Australian accent quite a bit. All right, so how people, there's the trend of saying like uwu on the internet.
Ooh.
Like, uwu, like cutesy. So I was like, can you say it really Australian? I was like, how am I going to do this? And I was like, all right, uwu. And they're like, that is the worst thing I've ever heard.
Wow.
That Adam Hills, the comedian, once covered this because Australia was nearly colonized by the French, and he's like, we would have fucked up their language too. We would have been speaking Frozzy. So we would have been like, ça va, bonjour, Like, we would have just ruined that as well.
I wonder what the French think of the French Canadians, like accent wise and stuff. Because obviously, or even the Spanish to sort of like Mexicans and things. Though I could probably tell the difference between sort of a Mexican Spanish accent and a Spanish accent. But I wonder what the French sort of think about French Canadians or.
The same with the Creole, really. I mean, in like New Orleans, they speak French.
Oh yeah, I suppose they do, don't they?
French, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all the areas have different dialects. Then the other thing I watched this week was that Warrior Nun, which was
so good.
I don't know. I just kind of felt like the main character, she was great, but we at no point saw her being a badass. But everyone was like, she's gonna fuck things up, and I'm like, when? When is she gonna fuck things up? Fuck one thing up on purpose, not by accident. She does it by she's like a hot mess. Like she's got reasons, but like just fuck up one thing. Like you're a competent human being. That's all I'm asking for, and she doesn't do it the whole season.
Before we move on to anything with Warrior Nun, anybody else listening? Spoilers alert right now, just in case you haven't watched it. Okay, you've been warned. Fuck you all. It's a good series. I was kind of hoping towards the end, like episode 8, thinking, please be in episode 9 because we really need a fucking explanation of what just happened.
Yeah.
And then it just ended. I was like, mother, you did this on purpose.
And they weren't exactly subtle. There's a character in it called Lilith, and she gets sent to hell and comes back a demon. I'm like, really, Lilith?
But the thing is,
subtle.
Did she get sent to hell? Because now it's been flipped going, so the person we think is an angel isn't actually an angel, and the creatures they've been fighting isn't actually the bad guy. It's more like a bounty hunter.
I kind of got the impression that he stole the thing from heaven, and then once it was out of heaven's grasp, the hell creatures were like, we want that too, and that's why we see him appear from hell. I think it's very clear that she came from hell. I mean, the fire and the brimstone and the giant horned devils are kind of, that thing.
Perspective.
But I think... Yeah, it was frustrating that there were some things they just spent way too long on, like her love story with literally the first boy she runs into within like the first 5 minutes of the series. She's like, I'm in love with this guy and I'm gonna run away with him, and he's like this crazy girl who turned up and is actually crazy, and I'm hot and like well adjusted. I'm into this, and I'm like, why? You would never be into that, like, because they're living a criminal life, and she comes in, she's like, hi, can I be a criminal with you? And they're like, yeah, of course, you're mildly hot, let's bang. And I'm like,
sounds like a Night of the Fox.
Y'all just have nothing in common. I just hate that when they really push a romance in any kind of show where they just clearly have nothing in common and there's no reason they should have any interest in each other. Like, better writing, just better writing. And then he's like, I found out your secret, that you are the Warrior Nun, which every time they say it, I have to laugh because it just sounds so fucking dumb. Like, it sounds like a B-grade movie from the 80s. She's the Warrior Nun from an ancient sect of warrior nuns. She comes from a long line of nuns who are warriors. Like, oh, fuck off. Like, it's such a weird name. It just doesn't, you can't say it seriously without it just sounding tacky and weird. Like, just say it in Latin or something. Make it sound posh.
Just call her Sister of Battle.
Even
Battle Sisters.
IP issues.
Battle
IP issues.
Angel Warrior.
And let's face it, people, the other awesome thing that came out this week, which I've been waiting for quite a while now, and I also bought the fucking omnibus on eBay yesterday for like really cheap. But The Boys season 2 trailer dropped, and it was fucking awesome.
Oh yes.
Yeah, that's gonna be good.
I'm really excited. I'm excited for Stormfront, who they've recast. In the comics, she was a guy, but she's a woman in this film, and apparently she's going to come film the series. She's going to come into the show and really fuck with the Seven because she's quite a feminist, and they're kind of the worst to women. So that I'm excited for, and her costume is absolutely baller.
Baller. What does baller mean?
Awesome. Do you not
Okay.
say that?
Oh, like a hot dog? Awesome, like a hot dog.
I don't know.
Have you ever seen that? What is it? Comedian Eddie Izzard. where he's just like, the word awesome, and the actual literal meaning of the word awesome is like, if something was awesome, you'd be like, oh my god, I am so struck by this awesome, it's so amazing, whereas people just sort of like, it's awesome. What like a hot dog, Armored Hot Dog, they're awesome. I think there's the bit where he's just like, what's it like to be in space? It's awesome, sir. What? Like a hot dog?
It's like, I've been reading a bunch of like Reddit stories recently because, what else are you going to do? And I keep seeing this phrase that keeps getting used, and I just don't know if this is a censorship thing or an actual thing Americans have taken to saying. But they'll be like, I got into a fight and this person yelled, "Forget you." And I'm like, is this like a censored way of saying fuck you? Or are people actually getting offended at people saying forget you?
Forget you is what they would use in BBC films back in the day, before you could get, before the watershed, and they just dub things.
RoboCop.
Yeah, overdubbing water. Forget you, man. Forget you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's something that I was like, what? But I'm seeing like genuine adults from this era being like, and then the person was like, forget you, and I was like, I can't believe they just said that to me. And I'm like, are you censoring it, or are you just really sensitive?
Probably both.
Weird.
But it's America, and you know how they can be about swearing, so like either really into it or really against it and nothing in between. And yeah, I'm just like, I have no idea what's going on here.
Other things that happened this week, obviously for myself and Mr. Camp, the 9th edition of the pre-orders came out, and everybody just kicked off because they
What the hell was that about?
They just there was basically, you had Games Workshop made a limited run of them. Now, from what I understand, there's potentially going to be a second wave of it, but
they've already guaranteed a second wave in August. But I don't know. That's just unsold stuff being moved around.
Yeah,
or actual second printing.
But basically, you had a load, and scalpers have gone on and bought like 40, 50 boxes, and then just stuck them on eBay for like 500 quid, 300, 400, 500 quid. And then you had, it was one of the funniest things, man. It's like I bought 2 boxes, because because it basically you get cheaper models if you buy them in the boxes, and I'm going to give my mate the extra rule book, and I'll swap some of the Necrons with some of the some Imperial stuff, so at least I get sort of thing. So I was one of those guys who bought multiple boxes, but it was just a case of it was cheaper that way. But I'm not scalping it. But you had some people who are literally just buying them to scalp them, to literally sell them on. And there was one guy, he was the first guy to place on the forum, the buy and sell forum on 40k. It's just like Indominus box set sold, and it was like it was up by like 50%. It was like at 170 quid, 200 quid or something like that. And he got absolutely ripped to shreds. People telling him, I hope somebody stands on your models, go fuck yourself, you C-bomb, all this other stuff. And it was just like hilarious, because they were literally, it got to the point where he deleted his post.
It's like, I collect these Star Trek models, and about, I want to say like a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, they decided to release a limited edition called the Glenn, which, if you've watched Discovery, was the sister ship of the Discovery in the first episode that gets destroyed. It's exactly the same as Discovery. The ship is identical model, it's just got a different registry on it. It even comes in a box that says Discovery. Like, so, but they only made like 500 of these or something. So people went absolutely apeshit trying to get them, and they were only releasing 50 a day at conventions, 1 per person. But because I'm a cosplayer, I turn up in a different costume each day, and I got one each day, because I'm an asshole. But you have to be careful when you want to try and sell on your spare one, because if you try and sell it in the specialty groups, they're like, you want what for it? Go fuck yourself. I hope you die. And you're like, not worth that. So I'm just going to put it on eBay.
Yeah, it's the scalping things. It's like I've had a few sort of run-ins with people about it, and you get people who defend it, and it's just like, that's just how commerce works. That's how capitalism is. You buy and you sell them on. But it's just like, I understand that, but it's just a dick thing to do, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. I did it when I was broke. I was like, I am broke. It's $40 for this, and I could sell it on for 120. I'm gonna get in line and sell that and pay for this convention this weekend. YOLO. But yeah, it is a dick move. But I'll own up to it. I have been that dick.
Yeah, and you get it all the time with 40k, especially with the Black Library books and stuff.
And the Sisters of Battle box before Christmas. These limited run things they keep doing, it's just guaranteed to generate bad will.
Yeah, and it's just sort of, and the thing is, the 40k community is full of bitches, people bitching about stuff all the time anyway and stuff. You can't have a discussion on there without somebody kicking off about something. They're like, they're super sensitive about everything, and we're talking even about made up things. They get really
especially about made up things.
Yeah, they get really wind up.
Here's a question, because I don't know nothing about the community. But I used to date this guy who was kind of into it, but I didn't give a shit, so I didn't pay attention. But when I would get bored, I used to like going through his model like pieces and like kit bashing really weird characters together.
Yeah.
Is that really frowned upon?
No, you could make your own things. Like you're sort of encouraged to sort of make your own things and stuff. That's why you have.
I was really pissed about it, but it might have just been the fact that he was a pissy person. But I used to be like, like, what is the weirdest character I can make, or the most unusual character? Like, you're getting a wing and a lobster claw for a back. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just
depends on what army.
It's just a weird community. It's like, I love 40k, I love the lore, but it's just they're so down on Games Workshop, and Games Workshop aren't exactly, they're not squeaky clean, but they try, and in the end, one, they're a business, they're trying to make money, so you have to understand that they're not going to. Say it again.
They're like 600% better than they were like 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah, big time.
Well.
They had a big change.
They put so much effort. At one point, it was literally our way or the highway. And, they would just not deal with people. Nowadays, they engage with people. They listen. They make stuff happen that people are asking for. And what happens when someone gives them something? They say, well, that's nice, but I'd really like something a bit more.
Yeah, they just moan.
It's like when this Glen issue came out, they basically had like 100 ships left, and they were like, okay, we're going to chuck them up online, first come, first serve. About 8 people, they sold 108 by accident. So the other 8 people that were going to miss out on the Glen, what they did was, and I thought this was actually quite great, is they actually said to them, look, we screwed up. We're going to send you instead our original production model of some of these ships. So this is a one-of-a-kind item.
Yeah.
And I thought that was actually a really kind of cool piece of customer service. But of course, like you said, that kind of toxic mindset, then other people are like, well, I want one of those. Can I send back my Glen and I get one? And it's like, dude, come on. This was a nice thing. They didn't have to do it. They're probably keeping those as their own collector stuff for a long time.
You can't win. You can't win. I know it's like geek culture in general. There's a lot of that. That's one of the sort of downsides of being a nerd is there is a lot of
Me too.
Yeah, and
what about me?
Yeah, and it's really sort of it's not good. It's not sort of very.
It's very entitled. Yeah,
and it just sort of it's just like you kind of go, fuck, man. It's nerds like you that give geeks like me a bad name and stuff. It's just sort of like you're just making things worse for us. We're trying. It's just not a good way to be. And it's just you can't sort of win on any of these things. It's like Mark said. They are so much better now than they were 10 years ago. They're really sort of trying their best now. They have issues now. And with the help of Mark, I wrote an article about sort of rules abuse in tournaments and stuff recently. I'll not go into mass detail about it because I'm thinking we might see if we can get some actual 40kers on to talk about it. But it was just the fact that you have these sort of like what they call FAQs, and so basically they bring out rules, and because they're all about the money and selling things and getting things sort of moving on, they're not great at quality control when it comes to some of the rules. So there's a lot of ambiguity, and with the ambiguity comes rules abuse. With the rules abuse, it's more so in competitive scene because the competitive scene's getting quite big. And people use it to win. Now, if that's completely up to them, and I don't overly mind it. I just don't think it's a good way to play a game, because if you're using rules abuse to win, then it's not really it's not fair in a way. I don't know what it is.
It's not playing the game.
It's not being sportsmanlike.
Yeah, but the thing is, I did this article and I posted it on a few people, and it just got so much backlash. Like, some people agreed with me, and some people partially agreed with me, but said, basically, I was saying there needs to be a living rule book where you have in between the times where Games Workshop actually FAQ something, you need some sort of system where they turn around and go, right, well, this rule seems broken, or this mechanic seems wrong, or this isn't interacting properly, therefore let's have an agreement that this is the way it should be, and then that everybody knows, and you can move on. And then if Games Workshop turn around and go, okay, that's how it should go, brilliant. If not, then it gets changed. But everybody is just like, oh no, you should just wait for Games Workshop to do it. But then everybody moans because they're not FAQing things properly and stuff. And it's just like, it is up to them to sort of make sure the rules in their game are playable. But even so, as a community, if you want to play the game properly and you want to play it in a fun way where you've got a sort of relatively sort of good chance of winning, then you need something in the background to sort of fill out gaps and stuff, but people just weren't having it. It was just like...
The thing is, there are two kinds of 40k players. There's the 40k players that play for fun and for fluff, and they're often the people that play in a club or a local shop.
Yeah.
So if they piss around, they very quickly end up going somewhere else. Otherwise, you learn to self-regulate. Then you have the pardon the use of the language from earlier conversation, the beardy types, the tournament gamers, and they literally don't give a damn. They're scorched earth about everything as long as they just want to be able to say they won.
Yeah, well,
and they will do whatever and hopscotch because they go to tournaments where people have to play them, play them, and they piss on them.
Yeah, but I'm in sort of like tournaments. I would, and I did an article on this as well. I would never go to, because all of me and my friends always thought it's full of neckbeards, it's full of wax, and wax win at all costs. I don't want to be a part of that. But when I started playing, you sort of get to a point where fine, there are people who will literally just obliterate you by using, their superior knowledge of the rules, and by using rules abuse, being good rules lawyers and stuff, and that's fine. But you get to a point where you sort of start playing people who are on your level, who are happy enough just to sort of go with it, and it becomes a lot more enjoyable. Now, I don't overly have an issue with people who play competitively, because in the end, it's a tournament. You're playing something where you want to win, and there is sort of prizes, and there are like ITC ranking tables and stuff, so you can there's kudos and sort of there's stuff behind it. So if people want to win that way, and I understand if that's the way they want to play, as long as they're being sort of they're not being dickheads about it. If they use a rule and they say, look, that's just the way it is, and this is how it's written, and blah blah blah, I don't have a massive issue with that. It's just that I don't think it should be there. It shouldn't be there in the first place for them to take advantage of it. They're good in that they pick up these things. They're super smart, and they'll pick up these things, and they're the ones who always figure out the loopholes. But they shouldn't be there in the first place, and it should be in a position that, right, all the factions aren't equal. Some are slightly better than others, some are a lot better than others, but you shouldn't have something that's going to give somebody an unfair advantage. And it's just, and that's the way it is. And I appreciate a lot of these channels and a lot of these people make a lot of sort of they get a lot of money out of it, or they get sort of views and stuff, because that's what their channels and their things are built on, is sort of showing you how to sort of do this. But I personally don't think it should be a thing. I think you should sort of try and find something. Like you said, Blood Bowl have had a living rule book for a long time now.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't have to be that way anyway. I mean, as a big contrast, look at X-Wing, which I will admit I actually quite enjoy playing competitive occasionally. I'm not great at it, but I love the game. Some point, once everything's back up and running properly, go along to Element when they're running an X-Wing tournament over a weekend, and compare and contrast that to the how the players work and how they interact to how they do at 40k tournaments. I guarantee you will be blown away. I have literally, I've walked into tournaments where someone's come along and they've forgotten, like they've picked up the wrong case, yeah. and there's 120 other people in there playing, and they have all clubbed together between them to make sure that guy can play. So they've produced chips and cards and all sorts of things. I've seen people actually, I shit you not, they have actually deliberately misread their own dice to give someone else a win because they don't need those points, and because the other guy literally just had a brain fart and they don't want to win based on someone not being on their best.
Yeah.
It's really bizarre. It's really great as well. Online as well. The community's so great. I mean, I've got a good friend, and he can't play competitive anymore because he now works for Asmodee.
Okay.
So up to a certain point, he can't play properly. But he made it to Worlds last year, and he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to afford to get there. They threw a GoFundMe to get him to Milwaukee, including his accommodation and stuff. It was fully funded in like 2 weeks.
Tim, a guy I know, he actually TOs for some of the 40k stuff. Tim King, he was there, I think, and it's all about getting special sort of like you get prizes and things, and then they get sold on because they're tokens and
Some
things.
People do that, but then I know lots of people that don't do that, and I mean through these guys, I don't always necessarily play against them, but I know like several guys that have been European champions and world champions and stuff like that purely didn't expect it. One of them, it was the first time he'd really gone to that sort of a level. His dad played and he started playing because he wanted to do it with his dad, and he ended up winning the world championship. Like, pure fluke. He how it is when something just works for someone.
Yeah.
And it was a really cool thing for him. He was like the last world championship for first edition before they flipped to second edition, and he didn't believe he'd won. You could see on the thing. But all these things that happened, all these things that people did that were nice for them, and I've seen people do that. And there are some that do the flipping and the selling on. That's great. But then there's the other guys that do that stuff. They flip it and they sell it. They sell it for charity, and it goes to children's cancer charities and things like that. And they hold, they'll throw spur of the moment tournaments with like a month's notice, and everyone will find time to fit in, and they'll all chuck in like 20 quid. And they'll put like $3.5 grand into a local children's pediatric unit or something like that, because someone's friend's daughter is in there, and they're like, we'd really like to do something for them because they've been so great.
Yeah.
And you'll have people tracking down from Sweden and across from Belgium or something to go to some hall in the back end of nowhere in Kent to play X-Wing for a couple of nights, keeping on someone else's living room, and like eating Nando's.
I think you do get that in the 40k community and stuff. Like, I'm not trying to say it's a bad thing. I'm not saying that competitive. I do it and I enjoy it, and I get frustrated when I get had by rules that are sort of maybe a bit sort of are just being rules lawyered, but that's just the way it is, and you have to accept it or you can't play. But my sort of thing is, I don't think it should be like that. I think you need to have a thing, but I don't begrudge them doing that because of that's just the way it is. And like you said about people giving out, one of the guys from Vanguard Tactics, I think it is, he turned up and he forgot his army, and like literally just forgot it. He got in the car, came in, and literally, and then people just kind of went, right, you can have that night. I gave him some of my my infantry so he could use that. Everybody sort of kind of threw in so he could do it and stuff. They're not as forgiving with rule. No, I lie. If you're in top tier, if you're in the top tables, they're not forgiving in any way, shape, or form when it comes to messing up dice rolls and stuff like that. That's just it. I played a guy called Mark, and he's a lovely fella, but I came in and I had made some mistakes in my list, and he went, oh well, that's just the way it is. I was like, oh well. Yeah. And I got absolutely obliterated because I hadn't done something properly, but that's just the way it is, I guess. But yeah, it's just that the community, if we're getting back to the main point, the community bitches and moans so much, and it is slightly tiresome, and it's like it does seem slightly childish in a way. They're not sort of
well, I mean, it is frustrating because, like, I know Funkos aren't everyone's cup of tea, but I do collect them, so I'm part of a few of the groups. Yeah. And Funko decided to release 4 charity pops for doctors and nurses during the COVID, and a percentage was going off to fund various medical centers. If you looked at the post that came out from Funko that day, it was actually it was heartbreaking because nearly every comment underneath it was like, where's the Funko for bus drivers? Where's the Funko for grocery shop workers? We're important too. We're important too. And it turned a lovely gesture about like supporting these people. Like, yeah, you know, don't get me wrong. You work in a grocery shop, that is important, and you're doing great work, and you're put upon the front. But it is in no way comparable to what the doctors have gone through and the risk that the doctors are under. You can't compare it, but people have to make it about me, what I get, and instead of being like
validation.
Instead of being like, this is a nice gesture, they went, well, what about me? And threw a strop. And I saw it on nearly this post came up for days on end. And people would screenshot it, post it to the various fan groups and be like, I can't believe this. What about me? I'm a grocery worker. I'm essential. Okay.
Yeah, there's too many people who just sort of want to jump to, they just want to be annoyed at something. They want to be offended at something. They want to be sort of,
they want someone to get out and kiss their ass.
Yeah.
And tell them that they're special.
Yeah.
Because they think that otherwise they're being slighted. And it's like, no. It's exactly the same as certain other political things we shouldn't really go back into because we'll end up here all day.
Yeah.
But the fact is that by celebrating someone, you're not denigrating others. And that's the hard thing that no one seems to be able to grasp these days.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
We're not specifically saying how awesome you are. It doesn't mean we're saying you're shit. It just means, in this case, we're showing some appreciation to someone who's extraordinarily fucked over.
Yeah, it's like if someone wins first place in a race, when we give them an award, we're not turning around to everyone who came second, third, and everything and went, you guys suck. Go kill yourselves. What we're saying is this person has put an extraordinary effort and has come out the top. Good for them. And you just see that, and the same thing with like gay rights and racism and everything. They go, oh, where's our straight pride, or where's our white pride? Like, you can lift people up without pushing others down. They're just trying to lift people up to be on a same equal ground, and it's just really frustrating to see that kind of mindset. People just get stuck in it, and you just want to punch them.
Yeah, they're human beings. Are very complicated creatures, and it's just sort of like I remember. Well, I can't even remember what it was. I think my first sort of big sort of faux pas that thinking, well, everybody must think the way I do because this obviously I think it was something I did something about being anti-guns. I just like don't mind. They're fun to shoot. At the time, I hadn't shot any, but I was like, I'm sure they're fun to shoot, but I just don't think they're right. And I did this thing, and I got absolutely obliterated by a bunch of American guys who just like, don't take my guns, sort of thing.
God, yeah.
The Jim Jeffries sort of thing. It was very much that, that's our rights, And
I absolutely love it as an Australian because, like, we quite famously had a massacre, the Port Arthur massacre, that was so horrific that basically the nation went, fuck it. There was pushback at the time, but in general, we've kind of just we handed in our guns, we got rid of guns. What's really amusing to me as Australian is when I come into the gun debate, people are like, it doesn't work anywhere. It didn't work in Australia, and I'm like, until I left Australia, I've never seen a gun in person.
Yeah.
I've never feared for my life with a gun. I have never been shot at. I have never shot any. I've never seen a gun except on TV. Like, that's pretty good in my opinion. I'm of the opinion that we can kill people with all kinds of things. You can kill someone with anything if you're motivated enough, but guns make it very easy. Too easy.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's just. I think the Jim Jeffries sort of thing makes it. Puts the. He says the only argument you've got is, I like guns, and that's it. And it's just like, in the end, it's trying. I've shot guns. The picture I have on my Twitter is me holding a fucking a heavy machine gun, and it's awesome. It's loads of fun. I can understand why people want to do it and stuff, and I can see why people want to have these weapons and stuff. But without making this too sort of going into depth, to any American friends who are watching this, I understand your rights and there's arguments about the Constitution and things like that, but if that's what you want to do, that's fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but me personally, it's just like, shoot them in a range, brilliant, yeah. Have them, and if you've got them in a safe, great. You shoot them in your garden and stuff like that, but you don't need them for protection. You don't need them to overthrow the government.
Was there one I saw the other day about? Sorry,
just quickly. Yeah. I saw what I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is Sweden. What they do is they don't only have gun control, they have ammo control.
Yeah. Where
they actually limit the amount of ammo you can buy in a lifetime. So you're kind of like issued like one box of ammo because they're like, there is no reason. So if you want to go to a gun range, you get ammo at the gun range. You can use that. But you could only have a certain amount for personal use over your lifetime, because they're like, you're not in a war. No one's coming to. There's no reason you should need anything more than this. And it helps keep things a lot more regulated. And I'm a pretty big fan of that.
There was a Chris Rock routine he did, didn't it? Where he said, fine, I'm in favor of people having all the guns they want. Buy your assault rifle for $20, whatever. But every single goddamn bullet needs to be background checked, verified, and should cost $3,500.
Yeah, I think so you have my property.
Exactly. And, it should all be serial numbered and everything else. And you have to pay out the nose for it. So you have to really think about whether you want to go out and start spraying bullets around. And if you shoot it and it gets pulled out somewhere, it will come back on you.
Yeah. It's just, it's
a responsibility thing as well. There was a thing I think I saw a story the other day, earlier today or yesterday, in the States about 2 young kids. They found 2 guns loaded and cocked that their father had stuffed in the sofa just in case of an intruder, and played cops and robbers. And one of them, they're like 9, 10. One of them killed the other one, and he's going to be tried as an adult.
And the thing is,
they've juggled through hoops about it.
You see that so often.
Yeah, was it the woman that was shot by her own kid?
Yeah, I remember that one.
In the supermarket because he pulled the gun out of her purse and shot her with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, kind of going back to the point I was trying to make is that people are complicated. There's a lot more to people and how they view things than maybe what we think. And, the gun thing, I had really sort of zero tolerance. At the time, I was like, zero tolerance, you don't need guns. And then I sort of started talking to people about it and stuff. And I was like, okay, fine. I can understand having a handgun, to protect your family, again, if it's sort of, safely locked away. But then obviously the Jim Jeffries thing is, if it's locked away, you're not going to use it. You're not going to be able to use it, protect your family, are you? Because it's going to be in a safe. But you don't need assault rifles in your personal. You don't need them. You can have them in a range. You can have them if you like, I don't know, if you've got like a big, acres of farm where you can you've got a range, you can shoot them, but I don't think you need that sort of weapon and stuff. And I remember talking to James Franklin, I think he is ex-Army, used to do stuff for Geek Pride many years ago, ex-US Army. And I said to him, I said, so man, what's the score with this? And I said, so why would I ever need an AK-47? He's all like, well, it depends on, I said, for hunting, why would you need it for hunting? And he's like, well, it depends on what size of bear you're hunting. And I was like, I don't need an AK-47 to hunt bear. If I need an AK-47, then I'm not a very good shot and shouldn't be hunting bear in the first place.
AK-47s are not designed for big game hunting. They're designed for blowing big holes in people and for costing the other side lots of money trying to keep them alive.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, I just don't think private citizens should have weapons of war.
Yeah,
and I think things like that are just weapons of war.
Yeah,
they have no other benefit than causing as much damage as quickly as possible, and that doesn't give people a lot of time to think things through. Like, did you see that it went very viral, that rich white couple who there was a Black Lives Matter protest walking by,
waving around their guns. Yeah.
So he comes out on his lawn with a fucking AK-47, and you're like, that if he was black would have gotten him killed.
I think
is kind of the point of the protests.
Yeah, I think it was hilarious. It was a cult. I'm not even know. It wasn't an AK-47, but it was an assault rifle.
Yeah, whatever. But assault rifle. But it's just like, that was so unnecessary. And then she was holding this little like pistol, like she was holding like a chihuahua. And I was like, yep, that looks safe.
The
Holy
funny thing
shit.
is, she was actually the dangerous one of the two of them, because he was holding it with his finger off the trigger.
Yeah.
He'd obviously been trained. She was waving it around with the safety off.
Yeah.
The back with the hammer cocked and with her finger on the trigger.
Yeah.
In her offhand by the looks of things as well.
No trigger discipline.
Speaking of trigger discipline, just coming back to nerdy stuff, if I'm at a convention and I am shooting something for a photo, right, and some dickbag walks up to me and goes, you didn't have good trigger discipline, I will deliberately make it worse. Because it is so goddamn irritating. I am holding a plastic gun from the pound shop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shut up. Shut up. And
Yeah.
for all you know, I might be taking a photo of it and Photoshop it that I've actually just pulled the trigger. Whatever. But there's just like this little subsect of like dudes who go to conventions dressed as like LARPing real life soldiers, which I find personally weird as fuck.
Yep.
And then they're like, oh, we'll just stick an umbrella logo on and we're fine. And you're like, haha, weird. And yeah, they'll come up to you, there's no good trigger discipline. Oh my god, you come up to me and you try and correct me on any of this shit. Oh, I will do it worse. Oh, just don't. Leave people alone. If someone says to you, hey man, I knew you were in the army, I know you use guns, can you give me some advice on this? Go nuts. Go ape shit. But otherwise, keep your fucking advice to yourself. That goes to you as well, archers, because that's archer. Anyone who does martial arts will come up to your convention and be like, that's not how you do that pose. Fuck off, mate.
Yeah, geeks are very good at doing that, sort of pointing out, well, like I just did with the AK, you know, they're like, well, actually, have you seen, what is it, college humor do a thing called actually?
You actually made.
Yeah.
Like,
actually.
oh my god. it just makes me want to punch someone.
Yeah.
And then they'd probably be like, that's not how you make a fist. And then I will just kick them in the dick and I'll be like, how's that then? Like, it's just such a
you can break your toe doing
irritating
that in those shoes.
Yeah.
not in my shoes. But like, it's just such an irritating part of geek culture, this need to constantly correct people as if like that's your whole identity. That's, you know, it makes me a bigger fan than you because I know exactly which episode number you're talking about and you're just referring to the summary. Oh, fuck off. Just let people enjoy things in their own way. You know, you don't need to go in there and police people.
Yeah, it's just, yeah. It seems to be a thing, and I think it's one of the things that makes people hate hate geeks, because it is literally, it's super patronizing as well. And I do it sometimes, you know,
you
where
just did it 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, it's just sort of like, you just sort of do it out of it. This is something you do. You're like, you know, look how smart I am because, you know, you've got that wrong, and I know that you're wrong, and therefore I'm going to point it out to you in front of everybody. And
then I turn around and go, was that actually relevant to the point I was making? No, let's move the fuck on.
Yeah, so it's just it's just a thing.
It's very annoying, especially when you're a woman, because trust me, you're subjected to it 10 times more than a dude would be. Like, holy shit, the amount of times people come up to me in a costume and be like, do you even know the backstory of what you're wearing? And I've just taken to telling people, no, I just thought it was pretty.
Yeah.
just to rile them up, and then I'll start calling it by the wrong name, or just to really wind them up. Because if you're going to be that person, like, oh, I'm going to ruin your day. But it is really irritating because people come like, oh, have you even played Witcher? And I'll be like, honestly, no, I haven't. And they're like, what? And I'm like, eat a dick.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it? Die mad about it? I look great. And they're like, yeah, but you have to. You're not a real fan. And I'm like, well, some friends of ours, Birds of Prey UK, I'm not sure if they still exist, do like fan-made Assassin's Creed costumes. So they'll do like mashup of like Assassin's Creed X Adventure Time, or like their own interpretation of an Assassin's Creed from a certain era. I find that super creative and interesting. But it's not like a certain character. Like, they couldn't give you the character's backstory. It's entirely made up. Like, technically everything's made up. And I just don't see the point of coming up to people in costume and being like, you're not a real fan unless you can recite everything about this character accurately. No, I can't, but I can make a core set in under 10 hours. Can you? Like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that as a thing. Like 2021, when conventions happen again, if they ever happen again, if this bubonic plague thing doesn't kick off in China, because 2020 is a nightmare of a year, let's not police each other's fandoms. Like, let's leave people alone and bring more positivity back in.
I think there is times when you have sort of legitimate ways to, if somebody's making an argument about something and they're killing it with sort of factual, you know, fallacies and stuff. You can't have factual fallacies. There's fallacies and stuff like that. You have to, you know, I think you need to kind of go, look, you know, I am very good at, like, I've got a few. I've got a plethora.
Two people in a debate.
Yeah,
but like that's two people entering into a debate, not someone just like minding their own business or just walking along. And someone be like, "Oh, I'm actually them."
Well, I have a thing that I like doing. out of badness. But I've got my Facebook is quite eclectic, so I've got people from the left, I've got some crazies from the right, a lot of like people like us who are sort of kind of central, more sort of verging on liberal types, and and they'll come out with stuff, and it'll be some really sort of lame sort of propaganda from whatever side they're on, and I like just sort of dropping the actual thing into the comments and stuff, so they'll sort of have something about, have you seen this, because this newspaper told me, or this page so, and then you put in the actual thing that happened, and you kind of go,
oh yeah. I can definitely agree on that. Like, I have a cousin who posts stuff like I remember back in the day when we used to pledge allegiance to the flag, and I'm like, you're Australian, we don't do that. We've never done that. And she's like, we did back in my day. And I'm like, Tony, we have never pledged allegiance to the flag in Australia. No one gives a shit. And so, but I think that's one of those things where you're correcting dangerous misinformation and rhetoric that's kind of getting around that social media is so well known for.
I think it's the sort of knowing when to do it sort of thing. So it's just like, if it's harmless, you should probably not do it. As much as it's hard not to just let it go, like I did. You just it just happens. It's like it doesn't really matter. The point they're making. Sort of, it doesn't matter.
I did see one today where someone posted this video of this woman attacking two people in 7-Eleven with an axe, and the caption was like, he got caught cheating, lol, and the actual story was that she was off her meds and just randomly attacked two people with a goddamn axe and nearly killed them. And I was like, man, even if it was a case of he cheated on her, that's an axe to the face. That is not an appropriate response. Why are people being like, yeah, queen? That's weird. That's weird.
Yeah. Facebook comment sections. I hover around Sky News and the Belfast Telegraph. If you want some fucking weird comments, if you want to see some absolutely insane backward comments, you go on the Belfast Telegraph. Is the local newspaper back in Northern Ireland. It's fucking insane, absolutely insane, man. It's just I was like, oh, I'm so glad I don't live there anymore. It's not like my apologies to, I've got a lot of friends and stuff there. Not everybody's the same. There are a lot of voices of reason, but there's so fucking crazy people out there, man. And it's just wow.
I'm in a Facebook group from my local town thing. I joined it to sell some shit, and I really need to leave it because it's just increasingly making me angry because the shit people post. I'll have my head in my hands half the time when they post something. I'm like they'll post something, and all I want to do is just send them to, can I Google it for you?
Yeah.
Someone posted today, how many of this did they ever make? And I'm like, just fucking Google it. You could have put that question into Google instead of going to a Facebook group. And then half the answers you're going to get are wrong. And then you'll say, I think you'd probably get a better chance of Googling that for a direct answer. And they're like, don't infringe my rights. I can post whatever I want. And you're like, yeah, but seriously, Google it. Yeah. You're so blessed to have Google.
I feel bad. Everybody moans about, the government and things like that. It's just having to deal with people's hard. It's just people are just insane. Just in general, there's so many differing views on things, and everybody's sort of now more sort of hypersensitive about everything, and it's just it's just mad. Just it's just the fact that the super crazies seem to be the ones who are the most sort of
vocal.
Yeah, vocal about it, and it's just
Well, it's
wow.
even our own Josh, who's been very quiet. He is running a fantastic Winona Earp convention, and you will see people on his page posting the same question every day that's answered in the frequently asked questions, and it's been answered on the page half a dozen times. And you just think, I've had to mute the group because I get so irritated where people be like, oh, can I do this? And I'm like, just read the FAQ. Read the goddamn FAQ. That's what it's there for. Why are people so allergic to knowledge?
Oh god, yeah.
People.
Has
people.
anyone ever and if you haven't, I really recommend this. Tim Minchin did a 10-minute beat poem called Storm, about his experience meeting a girl who was anti-pharmaceutical. And not only is it a fantastically written piece of media, he actually had it turned into a comic book, which is, again, really worth it. And he has this line, what is it? Are you so dedicated, saying that to your inability to Google? Like, because this girl's like, oh, we don't need pharmaceuticals, we don't need this. And he's like, we have knowledge out there, so easily accessible to us. Why are we afraid of it?
Yeah. And that's it. I love, people kind of say, oh, I wish I lived in a different time. So I love living in this time. I like the fact that I can literally read everything and find out new things. And
I always feel the people who say that must be white and straight and men. Because no other time has been great for any of us. Like, if I was like, oh, I wish I had lived back in the 1940s because the fashion was so nice. Yeah, I'd probably be married off and have no goddamn rights.
yeah,
Totally worth it so I can wear a cute dress. I can wear a cute dress these days.
You'd be taking 30 tranquilizers a day. Mummy's little helpers.
Yeah, or I might be institutionalized because I made the mistake of saying no to my husband. Like, historically, things haven't been great for most people unless they were rich, white, straight men. Like the poor, like even now, our poor, I think, have much more access to things than poor of the past. And so I just don't understand people be like, I wish we lived in the past. It was so much better. Was it? The average lifespan was like 40, fam.
it's a bit random, but there's a group I'm a part of, because I like my history and stuff. It's called Romans, sorry, and they posted a thing, and it was somebody who had done a model, and it was of a one of the African legions. I can't remember the name of it and stuff, but it was a person of color, a black sort of legionnaire, and people were sort of kind of kicking off about it, but they were kicking off about yeah, it's just sort of like, oh, you wouldn't have had a black legion. I was like, what? And then it's just like,
there's historical records of it, isn't there? They've actually found remains.
They invaded Egypt and Africa and took soldiers from them.
But then you have people sort of kind of, well, that's not, he's a sub-Saharan African. He's not, or he's this, that, and the other. And I was just like, fuck's sake, man, what are you going on about? And it's just like, and then somebody actually made the point. It's just like in Rome, there was no race. You were either Roman or you weren't, and it was
that's the only thing they gave a shit about.
Yeah, it's like basically they didn't care, if you were black, white, whatever. You were, if you were Roman, it was okay. If you weren't, then you were fair game, basically, and that was sort of it. And it was just like, I was just like, what are people fucking talking about, man? I just like, they're just going to they're just banging on about something just to have a go at something. It's just like,
people like to cherry pick the bits they think are good, and then ignore the bits that are awkward to validate their own issues and try to reframe things they don't like to deal with in the modern world.
Yeah.
Well, I like it when people are like, so that, let's say, a new historical drama is announced tomorrow, and the main cast has got a number of, let's say, Asians, Africans, whatever, mixed in. People will be like, that person wouldn't have existed back then. Well, you know what, Karen? Does it matter? Does it honestly matter? Do you think that the cast of Hamilton is historically accurate? Like, it doesn't matter what they did then, it matters what we do now. And if we only cast people based off how people used to do things, well, we never would have made any progress in anything.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's just, for all of our moaning and everything like that, I think we're definitely, especially if you compare us to a long time ago, we're definitely a lot more progressive. The fact that the fact that people have the chance to basically do whatever, say what they want, do what they want, basically square up to the government on a regular basis, shows that you can do that. Back in the day, if you did that, you were sort of disappeared.
We in Britain are incredibly privileged that I could write every day for the rest of my life, Boris Johnson is a twat, over and over again, publicly. I could probably paint it on the side of my house, and I'd be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I wouldn't be arrested for it. I wouldn't have any liberties taken away. There are a lot of countries in this day and age where they're not that lucky, and we're really, really privileged to have that. And some of us probably abuse it a bit too much. But I mean, Boris Johnson is a twat, and that is a hill that I will die on.
Not that we're trying to be overly political. I love the way we go. We're trying not to be political, and then we just dive into no guns. Boris Johnson's a twat. Things like this, and it's just like okay.
But on a positive note, I got a message actually just yesterday from someone I go to conventions with, and they were asking me if I happened to know a particular trans person's details, because they'd recently learned more about trans issues, and they'd realized in the past that they had been privy to other people mocking this person for their transition. And now that they'd learned more, they wanted to reach out to this person and make amends.
Mm-hmm.
That was really, really wonderful to kind of get that message. Yeah. Like, this guy, like, he hadn't seen this person in probably 2 years, might not ever run into them again, but they decided to kind of step up and go, you know what, I stood by while these two people I know said these things. I might not have said them, but I stood by. I want to check on that person. I want to make sure they feel supported. I've learned more. I've progressed. And that was just really, really heartwarming. And I'm just disappointed I didn't know the person to put them in contact, but he's like, that's all right, I'll keep trying, I'll find someone who knows them.
And at least he didn't give up at the first hurdle either, as in hey, I tried. Yeah,
and I just think that's, for all the crap, for all the negativity we keep getting, every once in a while you get a message like that and you just think, we're all right, we're going to be okay.
There are a lot of good people out there, and it's just, I think the not so good people are generally a bit more vocal, and it's just,
and you remember them. You tend to remember bad shit more than you do good stuff. Unfortunately, it's true. You'll remember the person. Well, we can try actively to forget the bad shit once it's out of the way. I'm pretty sure that's a thing as well.
Yeah. Well, I think the problem is that then people are conflating this issue with bringing down statues recently. Like, well, we can't forget our past, but when Nazi Germany fell, they chiseled off every swastika, they toppled every statue, because they're like, we can remember the past without glorifying it.
Oh god, yeah.
And I have never learned a single thing from a statue. Never. I've looked up at statues and gone, dope, I guess, like, cool, maybe I'll take a photo in front of one. I don't know who they are most of the time. The plaque doesn't tell you anything about it. I've learned more about some people in Britain from their statues being taken down than I ever have from them being up. So I think it's just a thing of, we can remember the past without glorifying it, and we can look through a modern day lens and go, I understand why they did that back then. I'm not okay with it now, but I understand.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to talk to somebody. There's a guy called Ash Patterson. He's sort of he's a cosplayer, person of color. He's very vocal. He does a lot of activism, yeah, sorry, and he's very vocal, especially now, about it on his Facebook. And I've kind of been I was toying with the idea of talking to him about it, sort of the whole thing, because I'm a middle class white guy who's had a good life. The only sort of discrimination I've ever had is potentially, being Irish in England, but it's never going to be the same sort of level as that. And obviously being, the Protestant Catholic thing was obviously a bit weird, back home. But I kind of always wanted to talk to him about that. I was sort of toying with the idea. If you're listening to this, or I doubt he is, but if you are listening to this, Ash, then I would like to have a chat to you. I think it would be quite good. But it's sort of like the statues thing. I've moved on slightly because I am a massive history. I love my history and stuff, and I like to think I look at things very sort of I like to think of things on sort of like the other side of the coin, if it were, sort of, you like to look at things on both sides. And I was very much, I remember sort of they were taking down Confederate statues, and at the time I was like, why are you taking Confederate statues down? Why, or it's history, blah blah blah. And then thinking about it, it's just like, if you've got generals who basically supported slavery, and who fought a war to who basically keep it. So
not only that, the thing is the Confederacy lasted like 5 years. That is something I only learned recently, because the way people bang on about it, you would think this was a 20-year-long campaign.
Yeah.
There were generations of people in there. It lasted for 5 years.
I don't think it was even 5 years, was it? Someone was saying they had
1861 to 1865, so 4 and a bit years, I think. Yeah, four.
So like, there are many other things that have lasted much longer and had better impacts in our lives, and we're not building statues to that. Like, fuck it, let's build a statue to Pikachu. He's been in my life since I was like 10.
I am not a fan of people destroying war memorials, though. Irrespective of your views on it, simply because, and this was I think this is a point I made. Like I think rightfully so. I got beaten down about it. The last time I posted about it is like, Robert E. Lee, who personally I don't think was a great general anyway. That's just a history side. I think he was just lucky, and he was up against some fucking idiots on the other side. So I think he just, as it was, he got lucky. But
wrong man in the right place.
Yeah, I just don't think he was as good as he made. It's just because he was their big general, so they had to have he was a genius. I don't think he was. He was. I guess he was all right, but I don't think he was as good as he sort of made out to be. Another argument for another time. But
he was the guy who didn't get the shit kicked out of him, so let's celebrate him.
Yeah, it's just like, but
I think one of the problems with war memorials is that instead of glorifying individuals within a war, like, memorials should cover the concept instead of like focusing on a general. And I think if they don't focus on a particular person, then we can kind of use them to mourn
but you've got
that war more.
You've got general ones, so you've got ones that are dedicated. So, for example, you're talking about, in Nazi Germany, they destroyed all sort of Nazi symbolism and stuff, but they still kept war graves, and they have monuments to the deaths of soldiers and stuff. And it's just like, it doesn't matter in my mind that these guys were a part of a horrible regime. It's just like, that's a lot of people who died, and some of them probably were just doing it because that was their sort of their country, and they were brainwashed or whatever. And it's the same in the Confederacy. It's like there were a lot of people died, a lot of people died, and so your average soldier who probably didn't own slaves, who didn't who definitely didn't own slaves, who was just fighting because I think Shelby, is a historian. There's an amazing documentary called The Civil War, and he's a historian called Shelby Foote. I think he's dead now, but he basically has this anecdote about, a northern soldier says to a southern soldier, why are you fighting us? He says, because you're down here. And it's nothing to do with the slavery. It's because they're in his country, and they're basically, and he's just fighting for that. And that's the whole thing. And I think that there needs to be a sort of a line in that, like, this guy is a shithead, and he backed he was the rallying point around X thing, and this flag is bad, get rid of that. But it's just like, when it comes down to sort of other things where it's a bit more broad, I just don't know if I'm cool with it. And that's why I would love to talk to somebody about it in a way, just sort of who maybe is on the other side of me, because again, I'm a privileged person who probably doesn't, and I would like to learn about it, but in my mind, I can't.
The most poignant war memorial I've ever visited is actually in Melbourne, and it's a weird kind of monument when you see it in context, because this is in Australia and it looks like a pyramid, and they built it at the top of a hill, so you can see it for a very long while away. It's like a white marble pyramid, and what I really like about it is that there are no statues, from memory, I might be wrong if anyone's listening, but from memory there was no statues of any one individual. It was very much about the war effort. So this monument, it has rooms full of flags from every nation who participated in the war, and then a room that's war medals from every person like that, and rooms with photos and things, but there's no statues to any individual person.
Is it an Anzac? Is it an Anzac Memorial?
Probably, yeah. Like they tend to be. But what was really clever, and I think it gives more thought and makes people think so much more than like a statue of like some guy's face, is in the very middle of this pyramid, on the floor there's a square, and it says "Lest we forget." And every 25th of April, which is Anzac Day in Australia, at I think 11 o'clock, which is when the armistice was called, they've calculated so the sun shines through the roof, bounces off mirrors, and lights up the word "forget."
Yeah.
For an hour every year, and will do so for the next 2,000 years.
Cool. That's cool.
And
That's really cool.
Yeah, when you see stuff like that and they're telling you about it, I think it makes you feel how important and grave this was, and it really gives you a lot to think about. And the whole place, it feels a bit like a tomb, so you feel very, very connected and sad while you're there, but I think in a good way. It made me think about war and Anzacs in a way that I never had, because I was from a generation that didn't have to deal with it, and very privileged that way. And it's always stuck with me how powerful that is. And then I'll see like a memorial, and it's just like one guy on a plinth, and I just feel nothing. I really wish that I would be down for, let's say, war memorials being reworked to be more instruments of learning than glorifications of individuals.
I think someone put it really well when I was reading somewhere. They said that things about war should be about remembering and commemorating what happened, but they shouldn't be about glorifying. And what you tend to find is the memorials that are one person tend to be about glorifying that person's achievements within war without considering the cost.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a great example over here is Nelson's column, which if you look at it and you look at the things that are around it, it's all about celebrating the imperial achievements, the putting down of various people in various places, the resources and everything we gained back. And it's a very important thing for us in some ways, because it's a part of our history, but it doesn't say what we did had its own cost but had a reason. It says we were awesome and this person represents it because he was in charge.
Yeah.
And that's celebrating. Whereas you go somewhere like, more local to me, if you go down to South Sea Seafront in Portsmouth, there is a large war memorial which remembers people that were killed by, serving in the Navy. And I've only found out about 10 years ago by chance that one of my grandfather's brothers is commemorated on there because he was serving on the Hood. On the HMS Hood when it went down.
Wow.
And when you go down there, it's a very large memorial. It has an obelisk in the middle, the whole thing that we still have from the Victorians, the obsession with obelisks. Yeah. And it's just square, and it just has flags. It just has wings out from it that are just names. Yeah. And when and where, and it's just series of names and everything else, and it's just there for you to be able to go to. It's in the middle of the common. It's if it's raining, you get wet. If it's dark, you can't see bugger all if you don't bring a torch. But it just stands there and says, we need to remember this happened.
Yeah. Well, like this shrine in Melbourne, it would basically be on prime real estate. It's in the middle of this hill, but it's in the middle of it. It's surrounded by lush parklands. Like, you could probably get lots of money for that land, but they've put it in the middle, and they've put it at the top of this hill, so it's very, very visible. And when you're in the shrine, you look out, and from memory, also it's called the Shrine of Remembrance. So it's not the Shrine of World War II or the glory of World War II or the sign. That is the Shrine of Remembering. And I think that's, for me, that I think that's what memorials should be, is they should be about remembering.
I have this saying, and I'm coining this now. I've been saying this for years, but history is to be learned from. It's not to be dwelt on. And there's, it's something that you should learn from, and you should appreciate both sides of the coin. It's not something you should hold to you all the time. And use as a weapon. It's something, and very, 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 very many people, especially in the United States and even in the UK, nationalism is very much tied to their history, their glory days of history. And
well, God, even Donald Trump just this week was like, oh, America, we tamed the West and we won World War I and World War II. And you're like, okay, first, you didn't. Why you even bring this up? This is weird. This is weird. And tame the West, you killed the natives.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. History is, and this is why I love history so much. I love it. Like it just is such a big part of my life. And it's because it's so gray. There's very few times when things are black and white. World War II is is black and white in a way. It's like how it led up to World War II. From the Treaty of Versailles, World War One, and blah, blah, blah.
Sociological issues,
yeah, sort of thing.
That's
But
screwed up.
as a war, it was a justified war because of getting in bed with Stalin and all of his sort of shenanigans and killing 30 million people and stuff. Probably
shenanigans.
Yeah, there's an amazing graph you can find online, and it's basically casualties of World War II, and it basically it's just the animated info thing, and it basically shows you all the different casualties from different nations, and the Russian casualties are absolutely insane. Like 80 million people killed, and it's just like. It does this thing where it's like UK, USA, Germany had quite a few casualties, and then Russia. It keeps on going and going and going and going. It's just yeah, absolutely insane, man. But
they basically put people in buckets and threw them.
But it's like,
let's be honest.
They sort of the Russians actually got quite good. It's like the Russian art of war, operational art of war and stuff got a lot better towards they learnt a lot. They came into the war having nothing because the purges. I love we're doing a history debate. This is awesome. But they had like the purge, Stalin's purges and stuff. Their army was shit, and then they suddenly learnt a lot and they got really good. And it sort of they effectively won they didn't. It wasn't in Russia, and my friend's married to a Russian lady, and he used to live in Russia. And they basically believe that they won the war single-handedly. And it's like, no. It's not as easy as that. You were very instrumental in the winning of the war, but it wasn't sort of it wasn't a thing.
It is interesting how it's permeated down through our culture, though, because think of how many comics, movies, and things like that, where if it's a Russian spy, Black Widow coming up, Russian anything, they're always like, who Russian? They're going to be badass. They're going to be like the best killer. They like, you don't mess with Russians. And it's such a common trope through so many of our media. I think even I'm currently doing a rewatch of Leverage. If anyone ever watched that.
Oh, Leverage.
Yeah.
I adore it.
Yeah, and it's something that keeps popping up. They'll be like, oh, we can talk our way out of there. Unless they're Russians. They're Russian. Oh, we're fucked. Oh, they're Russians. Speaking of which, did you hear that they're remaking
Leverage? New version,
yeah, but without Ford.
Yeah, I was going to say, without Ford and with Noah, I'm not convinced. I'm really not convinced. But
I am. I'm convinced by everyone, but Noah. Yeah. I hate Noah. Oh my god, I hate that actor with a violent passion.
We have had that conversation a couple of
so
weeks
angry.
ago, I think. Yeah.
So angry. But yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing all the rest of them get together.
Because they're so good. Because obviously he was recently in the guy who played Alec, Hardison. He was in short treks for Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah, he was. He's
Calypso.
But he's also only part-time, isn't he? Because he's got another gig. He's got another gig fronting another series that was picked up. So he's going to be in and out as and where availability, which is going to be a shame.
Yeah.
But I will admit it. I'm just glad that they got back a cat burglar.
I've been rewatching it, and I'm just like, damn, I forgot how good some of this really was. And for me, the guy who played Nate Ford, Timothy Hutton, was actually one of the weaker cast members for me. And like, it also just feels like every season is Nate goes off the rails a different way, and everyone puts up with it.
I think it kind of was. The whole idea was that he was in theory supposed to be the straight guy, the one that did things right, but he was actually the one they all looked after. He was the dysfunctional child, and all these career criminals that only work together were only sticking around because they were trying to stop him from fucking what's left of his life up.
It was a really good dynamic if anyone's seen it, because they'd have stuff like Elliot Spencer, who's the hitter. He's meant to be the guy who comes in and beats up the bad guys. He's the muscle, but they would make him layered. So there's an episode where they're pretending they're infiltrating like a big mob wedding, and he's pretending. Yeah, you know the one. And he's pretending to be the chef.
A squeeze
And
of lemon, just
yeah,
a squeeze of lemon.
They come in and they're all like, "Have you done things like?" He's like, "No, I've got to cater for 130 guests." Like, and he's cutting up things and like, "You're really good at this." He's like, "If you hold a knife this way, you cut a guy's throat. You hold it this way, you cut an onion." Like, they made him really layered. That he was obsessed with cooking. They buy a brew pub at one point as like a cover, and he's like, "But what about the menu?"
He is obsessed with cooking in his real life. He actually did a little web series. I've still got. I went and caught him not last year, the year before in Islington, one of his gigs, and I've got one of his Kane's Kitchen caps that I bought from there.
Well, I think what's good about the show is they were really good at kind of showcasing the actors' diversity. Because Christian Cade is also a country singer.
Yep.
And a very good one at that. And if
like I said, sorry.
There's an episode where they actually have to pretend that he's a country singer, so he sings one of the songs from his own album.
Yep.
But when I've been rewatching it, I've actually noticed there's a couple of more episodes where some of his older works are actually the background soundtrack.
Yep.
And I'm like, hey, good on you. And I just think that's a really kind of nice way for the show to kind of go, you know, like, here's other talents this person has. We want to make use of them.
But also there was the whole Jerry Ryan period.
Yeah, Jerry Ryan period.
That made me really appreciate how good an actress she was. Having been used to her as 7 of 9, which has its moments, but it can be quite constricting as a role, can't it? You know.
Well, I mean, she was brought in to be the hot chick,
and
that's all they wrote her to be, which was disappointing. But yeah, you're right. In Leverage, she was really good. I think that was the first time after Voyager that I was like, actually, I like Jerry Ryan. And then obviously she's gone on to do a bunch of other things, and now she's back as 7 of 9, but she's 10 times more interesting than she ever was on Voyager. Holy shit! Would I just go to town on a series just about her fighting her way through space at the moment? So Jerry Ryan's just
7 of 9 Space Ranger. We need this series.
Yeah, she's just evolved so much as an actress. She's so much more interesting now. Like her and shit, I never pronounce her name right. She was in Battlestar Galactica, the Cylon, the blonde one.
Oh, she was also...
Trisha Helfer. Yeah. Her acting over the years, whenever she turns up in anything, I'm always delighted because I know we're in for a good show. Like,
she admitted, didn't she? She learned to act on that series from people like Edward James Olmos and stuff.
Yeah.
Because she was just she was arm candy.
Yeah, she
hired her because she was hot. She was tall. She was blonde.
Yep.
She fit this image they had for that particular Cylon, and they figured if she could act as well, fuck it, that's awesome.
Yeah, and she's so great now. Like, she was on Lucifer for about 2 seasons, and absolutely phenomenal. And when I see her pop up, she's like one of those career sci-fi actresses at this point now. Like, she's gonna pop up in your sci-fi if it's any good at some point for like an episode or a couple of episodes. And whenever she does, she knocks it out of the goddamn park. Woman is talented as fuck. Love her so much.
But she had like a 5-year intensive masterclass, didn't she?
Yeah.
With all these people they piled in and out that she was bouncing off of, from Edward James Olmos through, you know. Oh god,
who would have guessed of that show that she would kind of be the breakout star in terms of long-term career?
Definitely.
Because Jamie Bamber kind of like disappeared into British.
Yeah, he's gone to sitcom hell, hasn't he? Really?
Yeah.
So if people are wondering why Josh is suddenly being, very quiet, his mic's fucked, and so we've been ignoring him. Though he's put something very random on the and I have no idea what relevance this has, other than it happened on the 10th of July, but it says The Empire Strikes Back took $175,000 from 483 locations on Friday, July 10. With its Friday gross, Empire has now taken $290.4 million domestically. That single day haul means the film is poised to gross in the high 400k and low 500k for the entire weekend. This will mark the first time Empire has topped the domestic box office since its theatrical re-release in February 1997. Also, he says it's in the news. Fuck you. But I'm assuming that is it's being watched.
His attempt to get us back on the geek stuff.
Yeah, we've literally gone all over the place today, haven't we? It's just literally been.
I've got one last one for you that I remembered I had sticked away somewhere, and I can't remember if I shared it with you. From your historical side of things, yeah.
Yeah.
Consider this: Victorian England was 1837 to 1901. Yep. The
Yes.
American Old West was 1803 to 1912. The Meiji Restoration in Japan was 1868 to 1912. And French privateering in the Gulf of Mexico ended somewhere in the region of 1830, which means, in theory, it is historically plausible to have an adventuring party consisting of a Victorian gentleman thief, an Old West gunslinger, a disgraced former samurai, and an elderly French pirate.
Amazing. Yes.
For all those
Oh
people,
my
says,
God.
yeah, but
Speaking of samurai, I've been watching the Untamed, which is, for anyone who's not on Tumblr, and that's all we could all talk about at the moment, is a Chinese period drama based off a book series. It's like 50 episodes long of season 1. Now, this thing is absolutely stunning. Like, the costumes are stunning. All the people in it are stunning. Like, you can tell someone's not a main cast member because they're plain. Like, it's as simple as that. Like, you can literally be like, that person doesn't matter just because they're not hot. But what's funny about the show, the reason it's going viral, is the original books, it was a gay romance. But obviously this is a Chinese production, and like hell they'll do that. So they're like, oh, we'll just make them not gay. But oh my God, it is the gayest thing I have ever seen in my life. Ever. Like, the two actors are obviously, and I just don't know how they've gotten away with it with the Chinese censors. I honestly don't. The amount of times they just gaze lovingly into each other's eyes while talking about being soulmates, no homo. It's like, and what they cover, some of it is that they cover, because this is a period drama and there's magic in it, some Chinese mythology comes up, and there is apparently something called the tortoise of war.
Oh, yeah.
And when they brought this up, I was howling. I'm like, that is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. And then like 10 episodes later, they're in this lake and this thing comes up, and I'm like, that is the worst CGI I've ever seen, because all of their budget's gone on costumes. Worst CGI you've ever seen. It's amazing. It's like Xena 1995 CGI. And it's a tortoise. It's the tortoise of destruction or whatever. And it, oh my God, I was inconsolable. I was messaging people like, I feel like this is drugs. Like, what am I watching? What the fuck is happening here? And because there have to be beautiful cinematography, everyone's flipping around, but not actually hitting anything or kicking anything, but they are flipping and spinning in the air, and it's all very pretty. But you're just like, what the fuck is the point? But yeah, it is wildly entertaining to watch. Wildly entertaining. Because they've all got like magical powers and they're all meant to be fighting demons, but one of them went dark side, got killed, and the premise is that he's been brought back 13 years later, only to find out that everyone thinks he's like some demon lord now, and they're like terribly afraid of him, whereas he's like the biggest goof ever, and he's like, what the fuck? And like his soulmates out there still like, I'm stoic but in love with you, no homo. Like, it's incredible. They'll be like, we're soulmates. No homo, China. China, we're fine. We're definitely not gay. But you're the only person in my life that has any significance to me. You're the only one I care about. You're so wonderful. Other characters will be like, God, isn't he just the most like amazing, like other guys will be like, he's the most amazing man you've ever seen, isn't he? Look at him. He's just so, like, he's so beautiful and he's so powerful and he's so calm. What a man. It just the fact that you know that they're trying not to be gay because they don't want Chinese government to get upset about it and yank production, it just makes watching it immensely irritating.
I thought, you know what? I thought China would be they should be kind of cool with it because they're trying to reduce populations and stuff, and it's just like, you know, that's a great way,
Honestly, if you want to get drunk, take a shot for every time that you're like, that is the gayest thing I've ever seen. You will be plastered within the first episode, absolutely plastered. And don't get me wrong, it's lovely. The downside is that it is an actual beautiful love story. And you're aware the whole time that because China has these policies, they're never going to get together. And that is frustrating to just so frustrating. Like fans have even kicked off because in the season 2 they're like, oh, we might bring in a female love interest. They're like, over our dead bodies, these two are soulmates, no homo. Like even the fans have to be careful not to be like, this is gay too much, because they don't want China to get upset. So they have to be like, these people have an intense, loving, deep relationship that's entirely heterosexual.
Wow, I'm currently just thinking about how we got to this point in our conversation. Like
I've
literally,
been wanting to talk about the Untamed for like the last 3 weeks
it's
because
just,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
The only downside is obviously it's in Chinese. I have to watch it in subtitles, so I can't be doing anything else. And I tend to watch things and sew at the same time, so I have to give it a lot of my dedication, which is a problem when you're sat there being like, "Oh my god, oh my god, China."
I want to map out this episode. I think just how we got. We've gone from.
Is this the ADHS episode?
It's just we've literally gone from. What was the initial point? Where did we start on this? What was the first thing people said? What was the first thing we said?
We started with "Oh God."
Yeah.
So we went from that.
Oh God, and history.
Yeah, no, we went
and
that.
It pinged around a little bit, and we talked about some social activism.
Yeah, we did Warhammer 40k, which went to guns. It went to sort of.
Honestly, on this podcast, we'd make just as much sense as if we actually made a spinning wheel or a dartboard of subjects that people wrote in about, and we spun it every episode and landed on something every 10 minutes.
Yeah, like. We'll maybe get some manatees with some balls and stuff, and they can sort of choose what we talk about.
Can you not just use Buzz? Or I can get my cats involved.
We can get some we can get like those sex dice. But it's not like topics on it instead. It's like, I guess we'll be talking about the social progress of bagel making.
Yeah.
And we'll be like, all right, we'll need a moment to Google this, but we can do this.
I was gonna jump in with something about Elon Musk's talking about sort of brain chips and things like that, but everything just got away from us. We just literally went into this proper deep sort of semi-political historical sort of thing that sort of meandered around.
I didn't hold it in anymore. I was like, I need to talk about the Untamed. I just need to talk about it.
It ended about sort of some sort of beautiful, potentially underlying, underlying gay romance.
If
thing.
you Google it and you see any videos, any clips from it, you would be convinced this was a romance, and like it actually covers it's very, very, very accurate to the original books. Because I googled the original books and I was like, if you read what happens in the books, I'm like, that's exactly what's happened in the show. Props to them. They have they've literally all they've done is gone, okay, this chapter where he pins him against the tree and makes out with him? Let's just cut that. And I'm like, you cowards.
Oh, so the book is actually overtly, for
the original source material, they are a couple.
Ah,
right.
Yeah. Okay, so it is gay. It's not just it looks gay. It is gay. It's just that they've had to cut it. They've tried not to make it because of the restrictions. Ah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And yet,
acceptable.
And yet the stuff that they leave in is so overt, it makes it almost pointless and very, very laughable, because you're just like, honestly, this might be the most romantic thing I have watched or read in my life. Everything. This shit's it's so goddamn romantic. Like they have a fight. They have a beautiful Chinese fight, like with the flowing robes, like Hidden Dragon kind of style. You know how they do the robes and everything. A beautiful fight on a rooftop, and they're like, "You're my perfect match. Only my perfect match could fight with is my equal in a fight." And I'm like, "Oh, just make out, Jesus Christ." This is physically painful.
See, that was a segue that you could have had. This whole conversation could have been completely different had you, when you mentioned in what's the Netflix thing that it's been going recently?
Warrior Nun?
Sorry, say it again.
Warrior Nun?
Yeah, no, the one with Charlize Theron in it.
Old Guard.
Oh God.
Yeah, Old Guard, and then you were talking about the two people who were fighting each other. And then they were and then that was a perfect.
But they actually make out.
Oh,
Good
right.
on them.
Oh God, yeah.
aren't cowards.
Yeah, this.
I'm never getting into China.
All right.
I want to see the look on their face when they look up your application and they start looking up their notes on you. You're going to see like windows blowing out and all sorts of things, aren't you?
It's like one of those things that I don't know if this is the case, but I know for a while that they were talking about if you entered America, they wanted to be able to see your social media to make sure that you weren't like trash talking Trump. And I was like, oh well, I guess I ain't going to America.
Yeah.
I was very paranoid about that last year when we were going there for our honeymoon. I was like, they have to see my social media and they're really actually paying attention. I'm fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, should I just make a bunch of posts beforehand being like, can't wait to go to America, the land of the free? Like I was in a commercial from the 90s, like it was a TV show from the 90s that was being sponsored by Coca-Cola.
Ding.
Okay, we're gonna have to leave this there because it's getting to the point where I want to start talking about history again, and we've got all kinds of things that we could sort of and it'll go on for hours. Maybe we'll have one day. I keep on saying this. We should just have a very long one where we just sort of you just go for it and go. But yeah, the yeah. Well,
and I think someone should watch a clip of the Untamed and just come and agree with me.
Yeah,
agree with me, scream with me. It's just incredible.
But yes,
Josh has not been able to fix his microphone, but yeah.
It's it was just just listening to Sabaton, the Great War, all your war needs. Yes, Sabaton, good old Sabaton. So yes,
thought that. Imagine what this would have been like if John Joe had been in, and Josh had working microphone. You thought it was weird then? You thought it was weird with just three of us in here?
But the thing is, see, John Joe would have curbed us. See, this is what happens, you see, because John Joe's not here. He would have gone off on a good tangent, and that would have taken a good for hour and 20 minutes. And we, sort of love you, John Joe. Sorry, we're not taking the pee. But it's sort of, we just would have he would have kept us on a track because we wouldn't have been able to go off on our own tangent. This is what happens when we're not regulated. This is what happens. We just go off on things. It's like, oh my god, so much freedom. So much freedom to do what we want, and then we just sort of talk about everything. Like literally, I think we talked about everything.
Do you think it's a little bit of quarantine fever because we're not actually getting out and seeing people? That we're just like, oh my god, a conversation.
Yeah, possibly.
That's very possible.
Possibly, yeah. But yeah,
it just all splurges out.
Yeah, it all splurged, and it definitely did. It splurged out in a million ways.
God,
to everybody who's been listening, I hope that's being sort of insight. I appreciate some people might not appreciate some of our views, but I'm kind of hoping they understand that it's not, it's just opinions, and we've got a lot of love for a lot of people. So, we just had a bit of a splurge today on very many subjects. But yes, so we're going to leave it there.
Maybe next week we'll even talk geeky things.
Yes, we'll try and talk geeky things next week. We'll talk about Elon Musk and his sort of brain chips and stuff. Which
has anyone watched the Lower Decks trailer that came out yesterday for the new Star Trek? So Star Trek Lower Decks season 1 official trailer came out yesterday.
That's the cartoon, yeah.
Yeah, which goes live on August 6th.
Yeah.
I suspect. I don't know. It's CBS All Access over there. I don't know if Netflix have got it over here or Amazon or whoever.
Okay.
Yes, because we definitely wouldn't say to anyone that you can just pirate it as long as you're using a VPN, because that would be illegal.
Anyway, we'll leave that. Charlie Theron confirmed that Atomic Blonde 2 script is in the works for Netflix.
Oh, yes.
That's Laura gone for the rest of the night.
Yeah.
Okay, before we go off on another one, we're going to stop here because this is going to get crazy.
Josh would like to let us know before we go that we can all go fuck ourselves.
Okay, thanks for that, Josh. That's
Sunday.
Great. Cheers. But yes, thank you very much for everybody who has been watching, who's listened, and if you've downloaded it. We need those downloads. We're doing quite well. We got ourselves to quite a good point before we went on our break. For about a year and a half, nearly 2 years. But it's good. We're getting ourselves back up. We're sort of doubling every month. So keep on downloading, keep on sharing it with your friends. We're here most Sundays. So come and join us. Have a chat. Stop us from going off on a tangent. I think if there's
ask us questions in the chat and shit.
Yeah, if there's less questions, then there's more there's more time for us to get into our own brains and talk about random stuff.
Things come out, they happen.
Yeah. So, but yes, thank you very much, everybody. I really appreciate that. And for the Geek Pridecast on a Sunday evening, I've been Matt Geary. With me has been Mark Canty.
See, I'll be able.
And Laura Benson.
Bye, everyone.
Oh yes, and sorry because Josh isn't here anymore, and Josh Varney, who's on our Facebook messages.
And he would want you to all be excellent to each other.
Be excellent. No, he says fuck you. He said fuck you, everybody. You heard that? Go and get him. Don't He told you. He's basically done a Anchorman and said, "Go fuck yourself, San Diego," but go fuck yourself, everybody. That's what he just said that on the Facebook messages.
I can even see it there.
You can see it there. In fact, if you watch this on YouTube, you'll see it right at the top there. It's just, he says, "Yep." No, don't go fuck yourselves, people. We love yous. We love yous. So yes, thank you very much, everybody, and good eve. Bye.
Bye.